Welcome back to A&B Convos Reacts. And as you can see behind us, we are talking about the one and only incomparable.
What did you call me? So he's always done Michael Jackson. That's always been one of the things he does. But his new imitation, I think favorite one right now, is Mr. Joe Jackson.
Let me tell you something. Don't you ever introduce me like that again. You understand that? You're gonna do it, you do it right. You do it right. But you know, now you're gonna taste my belt. You're gonna taste my belt. Wait, I thought it was rehearsal. Are we live?
Yeah, we're live.
All right. Never embarrass me like that again, Michael. You understand? Don't make me have to Tito you.
Tito.
But again, Coleman Domingo, absolutely fantastic. Not making light, really, of what Joe Jackson did and his methods. I understand that this is nothing to joke about. He was not a nice guy. I think that's pretty much, in my opinion. Okay, I don't want the Jackson family coming after us.
He wasn't a nice guy. That's not really even like
in our opinions. But what was interesting is you see the methods that he employed with his boys very, very early on. And that carried over into Michael Jackson's career. There were times that you would see Michael was very much a perfectionist, and there were times that you would see, now that we're seeing a lot of stuff coming out, where he would, like, for example, in We Are the World, there was, during the rehearsals, he sung his part, and I think it might have been Huey Lewis or Cindy, it might have been Cyndi Lauper. Basically, you would see Michael at different points in his career. He always would do it with love, as he would say, L-O-V-E, but he would shoot those looks. And that is a throwback to his upbringing with Joe Jackson. I mean, you have a man who is your father that he demands you call him by his first name, Joe. That's just crazy. That's crazy to me. But the beginning of this film, the opening of this film, seeing where they were, just this poor black family in Gary, Indiana, to where they ended up, it really did start with Joe Jackson deciding this is how it's going to be. And you've got Catherine over here, like, they got to go to school. Forget the school. These boys going on the road. So basically, you've got Joe Jackson deciding to do what he wanted to do, get this band together, go on the road, even though Catherine's like, hey, they got school, they got this, they got that. And Joe was like, forget all that. This is more important. This is the future. You want to be like me, growing up in the steel mills for the rest of your life? Well, I sure don't. And he looked at it as his ticket out of Gary.
His ticket, yes.
He wanted his boys to be successful so that he could be successful. And that's the ultimate, living vicariously through your kids. And we've seen that throughout the years in many, many, many different forms. And it never ends up good for the kid. The kid may be successful, but you really screw up that kid.
Yeah, I mean, he is like the picture of narcissism. But the thing is, too, that, like, he could claim that Michael's success is due to him. I would say that Michael's failures are due to him. Michael feeling like, I need my nose to be perfect, symmetrical. Everything needs to be just perfect. Everything, there's no such thing as perfect. Like, really, you know what I mean? And striving for it. And everyone's idea of what it is different. Your idea of what it is could change. And he, like, what kind of Michael Jackson music would we have gotten if he had been allowed to be a kid and he would have been like an actual adult making music? Like, it could have been better for all we know. And even though we can't imagine it being better, like, I think that we could say that, yes, his fame did come because of what he did, that doesn't mean it wouldn't have came anyway, but his illness and his trauma and his desire to never grow up because he didn't want to turn into him was detrimental.
Well, you know, that's the problem with abuse. You, for example, you will have the military, you will have prison, for example. We were listening to a sermon a few weeks ago where the pastor was basically saying the military and prison are similar in that they break you down. The difference is the military wants to build you back up and prison just leaves you there. And abuse is kind of somewhere in between. They break you down and they kind of want to build you up into what they want, but at the same time, they want to just leave you down. It's a very weird
They want to build you up into what benefits them and what they want you to be, and then they suppress anything about
else.
you
Exactly right.
that doesn't fit their, which this goes back into narcissism. You're only as good to me as what I get from you, how you make me feel, or what you can give me, or what you know, and then once you're no use to me.
Well, see, there you go. And this is a situation now where you have a black boy with your black nose, your black hair, and your father's calling you big nose, calling you ugly. We've seen that with the other Jacksons. Many of the other Jacksons have gotten plastic surgery. A lot of them seem to have gone to the same plastic surgeon because they have that same nose. They were looking at, he was looking at pictures of Peter Pan, and he would kind of touch his nose a little bit, thinking, I guess this is what I have to do. So that perfection mentality just really seeped into his brain to the point where if anybody's ever tried to tighten a screw and you look at instructions and they say don't over tighten, because once you over tighten, there's no undoing that. You know, there's only so many nose jobs that you can have until you've now over tightened. And
that's a good example.
It starts to collapse on itself. And we saw that in his later years, and it gets to a point where like, okay, we'll try to correct it, but there's not so much we can do. You really don't have much that we can work with. So
doctors should have said no to him a long time ago, but he's Michael Jackson. You don't say no to him.
Well, here's the interesting thing about that. That's something else that I liked about this docudrama. It's a Hollywood thing. So we don't know, this is not like a actual factual, we have a broad picture. But there were times, especially in this film, when you would see these moments, right, that would come up that you would go, oh, okay, maybe this is the moment why he decided to do this and when he decided to do that. And he's thinking about certain things, like you said, with plastic surgery and the vitiligo that started to take over his body, that really affected his self-esteem, because somebody that wants to be perfect and now your body is literally, you take it off and you're just looking at yourself going, this is horrible. This is horrible. And then I don't know, man. There was something about the 80s. My people, everybody come to the front row. We have a tendency to sort of follow trends. And in the 80s, it was that Jerry curl. And here's the thing. It sucked for Michael Jackson to have experienced those third-degree burns. I can't even imagine the pain that he had felt at that time. The fact that he was even able to wave when he's being gurneyed out of there.
It's crazy.
But those Jerry curls were a hazard to our health. Okay, it ruined pillowcases nation to nation, and you couldn't get near a flame because of it.
That's the reality. It was like having a fire starter fluid sprayed in your hair and then starting a fire. Was, and that is why he started on drugs. I believe he would have never done drugs. He was such a straight and narrow, like he didn't cuss. I watched the whole thing about him and Madonna when they went on their date. And he was like, she is just not a nice person. She is mean. And she was like, I was just trying to get him to cuss or something. And he wouldn't. Like, she was trying so hard to corrupt him, and he hated every moment of that. And so I really feel like, and the good that came out of that, him donating to the hospital and everything, and, spending time with other burn victims there, and how much time he spent going to Children's Hospital, and not because of a publicity thing, not because of a Make-A-Wish, but just because he just would show up and do that for kids. And He just has such a big heart in that way to just try to give out the love that he did not get from his dad. You know, he got plenty of love from his mom, but then Joe even would interfere really with that. You know what I mean?
But it was a shame to see at such a young age the older brothers, and he understood, everybody understood the assignment. Doesn't mean they liked it. His older brothers kind of accepted it and moved on. But Michael, being so young, like we had seen so many times before, when a traumatic event happens, everybody's reaction to that is going to be a little bit different. Michael's, he in many ways kind of got stunted at that point.
A lot of people get stunted in trauma. It's very common.
It's very common. So he was still in many ways very childlike, which he always had this heart for children. That's why he wanted to play the games and have all of these wild animals and, you know, like
Neverland. He literally named where he lived Neverland. He was really trying to be the real life Peter Pan.
But that's an interesting thing as well, that you saw all of these different things that were coming up in this film. Like, for example, Berry Gordy telling him, okay, you can pretty much get away with anything you want in Hollywood. People will believe it. So you're not 10, you're 9. How old are you? 8.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's something that in your mind at that age, you're like, okay, like just a little white lie that's going to benefit me. And you're going to take that mentality on with you. And now you're surrounding yourself with a whole bunch of yes people. And to your point from earlier, there was a moment in that movie where Joe Jackson is talking to Michael and like, what do you want to do? You want to surround yourself with a whole bunch of people that's going to tell you yes? That's how you know, what good is that going to do? Oh my goodness, because that is exactly what happened. In Motown, there was some range that was pulled in. And then once you have that, you know what? I have the money, I have the means, I can pretty much get and do anything that I want whenever I want. There is no. That is a very dangerous thing. And we saw that later on in life when you have those people that are not going to tell you that uncle, which I was hoping that his security handler would have been, and maybe to some degree it was, because he was with him for many, many years.
And then he wasn't for a while. So maybe he did try to rein him in, and that's why he stopped being with him for a while. Because you said, right, that he came back to be with him later on.
There was some off and on until he did ultimately retire.
Right.
So for me, this film really illustrated a very obviously talented individual, but also you saw the makings of somebody that would be troubled from earlier on, and that would continue on. This is not somebody that, to my knowledge, got into therapy for these issues.
No, and therapy was not a big thing in the 80s. You didn't hear people going to therapies. There was no computers for online therapies. It wasn't something that was talked about. And you look at him and he had many identity issues. He identified as a child. He had issues with what he looked like. He considered himself a proud Black man, a proud Black artist, but he really was trying to have that perfect look that appealed to everybody. I mean, it was sad. It was a rabbit hole. He really needed some help.
He did. And we loved the music. We saw a lot of the concert. It ended with his bad tour in '88. We saw a little bit of behind the scenes when he was filming Thriller, and that was really cool. If I'm to critique this in any way, I would simply say that I liked, in the beginning of the film, I felt like we got a little more background stuff that we didn't necessarily know about. We knew of the Jackson 5 and their music, but it was good to see them going on the road and at home and in certain ways that we may not necessarily have seen that before. I would have liked to have seen a little more of that in his older life. I feel like in the film it drifted away from that just a little bit and gave us some more of stuff that we kind of already knew about, like with that, for example, they're going to the record label of CBS when he's trying to get his videos played on MTV, which, again, this is in the 80s. And the idea that MTV refused to play, this is not just they don't play, they refused to play black artists. They only played white artists. And thinking of MTV now, like Yo MTV Raps and things of that nature, to think of MTV being that way at that time is just, it's mind blowing.
Right.
But that was reality. And if it wasn't for CBS, like, I'm gonna pull everybody if you don't do this. I'm gonna pull all my white artists.
Mike Myers.
Oh man.
Did a great job.
You did the dang thing. You did the dang thing.
Yeah.
So it was good to see, but stuff like that, we kind of already knew. I would have loved to have seen perhaps Michael have some private conversations with his security handler. Maybe a conversation with his sisters. Brooke Shields was a big part of his life at that time. I personally would have liked to have seen a little more personal.
Sisters, they only had one in the movie.
Well, yes.
Which is crazy because he has another sister too. She wasn't in there either, Reba.
And
so
there, and
I'm not sure what was
for
going on. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure what was going on with that either.
But I would have liked to have, and even if there were rights issues, now we can't get the rights to this, so we're not going to do it. Michael Jackson did The Wiz. Now,
that was a big deal.
That was not a commercial success at that time, but for black folk, it was a big deal, and it still is to this day. Even if you don't have the rights, and even if Diana Ross doesn't want to be a part of this, cool, no problem. Between him being a kid and the Bad Tour, The Wiz happened. It would have been great to have seen him, even from the back, coming out of makeup or saying, yeah, I just had to film, and I'm just kind of playing. Like they could have done something and alluded to it.
Yeah.
That just little things like that could have just, for me, brought it all the way over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we just sort of glossed over it. Like, oh, we don't have the rights. All right, just forget the whole thing. We'll just move on to something else. And that, for me, kind of bummed me out. I liked when he did drive with his security handler, when he had a whole confrontation issue. It's like, all right, let's go. When his father's like, okay, the boy's going on tour, blah, 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 blah. And you saw him drive away, and they had, I wanted to see some more moments like that. That would have been good for me as a fan, especially as a fan who grew up in that time, to have seen. But other than that, I think this thing really, really hit it out of the park.
I actually think that it's going to be harder to do the later part of his life because once he left to do his own thing, he was doing his own thing.
Yeah.
They weren't really around to know exactly behind the scenes what was going on, except for maybe the bodyguard. But I almost feel like this should be called The Jacksons, or, this was about Joe Jackson and Michael's relationship, and Michael breaking away from him and the family. That's what this movie was about. It was about Michael's escape to freedom to be who he wanted to be. So that's why it ended when it did, because he was finally broken free of Joe and was able to do his own thing and go to Neverland, and now it's his life.
But still being a Jehovah's Witness, they didn't celebrate Christmas, but they did celebrate Joe Jackson Day. So even at Neverland, he, as much of a strained relationship as he had with his father, he would still invite the family over and still celebrate this man. That, my friends, is what you call a successful, abusive, narcissistic situation. And I don't mean successful as in that's a good thing. I mean, that's what Joe Jackson ultimately tried to instill. Family, 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 family. I'm gonna abuse the heck out of you. You're still gonna celebrate. I'm still your father. And they still celebrated this man. But he did not like his father at all.
I know quite a few Jehovah's Witnesses that the man act like that, actually. But I digress. So overall, I mean, definitely 2 thumbs up.
Yeah, 2 thumbs up. 2 thumbs way up.
I would say 2 snaps.
And a twist.
And a twist.
Wait, is it 2 snaps?
Wait.
And a twist. We gotta remember how to do that. In living color, if y'all don't know what that is. And at the end of the film, it says his story continues, which sort of leads to there being a sequel
Perhaps.
to this. And we're excited to see it. Now, what happens after that? Because we all know that's when things got a little controversial.
Yeah, and I personally think if Paris Jackson's posting videos saying, it's Hollywood, you guys are going to love it, it's BS, I gave my stuff, they didn't care about it. Why are you being so elusive? Like, obviously, you're upset and you disagree. And you say you don't care, but you know, you're addressing it, which is fine. Why not tell us what you didn't like and tell us the truth about your dad? If you feel like the truth of your dad is not getting out, tell us you're part of the story. Like, we'll listen. You're his daughter. We'll listen to what you have to say. You know, to me, this gets you, Paris. Feel like you should.
Well, now's the time.
Do a little something about your dad.
Now's the time. I'm sure there's a reason for it, and again, there's a lot of moving parts to this Jackson family. So I can't call it, but if you feel like this was missing the mark, your brother was a part of this, your brother was in it, I don't know. Like you said, just come on out and say it, man. That's the one thing I'll have to say for Hollywood people. Sometimes people want to just give you play-by-play, and other times they want to be very cryptic about it and just kind of leave it at that. That doesn't leave us with a whole heck of a lot, and then we start surmising about what's going on, and that's not good for anybody. But we respect your decision either way. We did enjoy the film overall. I'm glad people of this generation are getting a chance to see the man that we grew up watching, and you will never understand. For those that did not grow up at that time, millions and millions and millions of literal hard copies, records, cassette tapes being the biggest selling album of all time. This is no streaming, no downloads. To do that is just unheard of and incredible.
And I know I had the record. I assume you had the record.
Well, of course I had the record.
We had the record. We had the record with Michael in his white suit and the tiger.
We had the pins,
the Thriller album.
The pins and the whole thing.
Come on, you know.
But
I was
even
poor
with
and
this,
somehow we had the album.
But this guy was still living at home with his family.
Right, by choice.
The biggest artist in the world still living at home under the thumb of Joe Jackson.
And he could have moved out, but he was a kid. He's just like, no, I'm not ready. You know, because he just...
He's like, I got to start living my own life. You got to start, you know, well, I'll tell you what, you don't care about family? Here's what we're going to do. I'm going to tell Don King that you're doing the tour. I need this. For my boys. I need this for my boys. Yes,
right.
Okay, Joe. I mean, everybody played their part well. And I gave shout out to everybody in this. So that's it for this episode of A&B Convos Reacts. Let us know what you thought of Michael. Did they hit the mark? Did they miss anything? Drop it in the chat. Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
That's it. We'll see you next time.